The Boston Bruins are playing their first ever game in Seattle tonight. Jake DeBrusk will be playing on the top line. And I am going to be joined today by a very special guest who's been on the podcast before and who I will reveal after the break. So let's get into it.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I am your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things spoke to be, as well as take a look around the NHL. Today is Thursday, February 24th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins your first listen every day. The podcast is free and available on all podcast platforms, as well as on YouTube, so please hit that subscribe button. Each new episode will be automatically added to your feed, and you can download, listen, watch, enjoy at your convenience. To follow on social media, look up Locked NHL Bruins on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find me, my dad jokes, and hockey tweets at Ian C. McLaren. For those who may be new to the podcast, I'm a lifelong Bruins fan. Been covering this team for various outlets for about 17 years. And we get a first tonight as the Bruins make their debut at Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle to take on the Kraken. Yesterday on the podcast, spoke to Allison Lucan. And today, very happy to be joined by Chanel Keenan. I think this is this your third time on the podcast, Chanel? I want to say third time.
I don't even know. I feel like it might only be the second time.
It feels like, I don't know, but every time is a pleasure. Always great to catch up with you, Chanel. How have you been lately?
Good. When you asked me to come on, I was like, I feel like I was just on your show, and then I literally went on the Spotify page and scrolled up, and then I was like, oh my gosh, it's literally been over a year since
Time flies.
On, so, yeah.
You've been pretty busy, I guess. I want to say you're the first person on the podcast who's ever been featured in the hockey news. That was pretty big lately. Do you want to talk about that experience a little bit? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of months, I would say, especially after the last time we talked. The expansion draft happened over the summer. I went to that. The arena was, I would say, not even close to being ready around that time, and then it was definitely ready by the time I was there in October for the first game at home, and I was like, it's just been quite the year. I'd say, quite the season. But I was featured in the Hockey News' list of basically just change makers. I don't know how they labeled it, but I was surrounded by a really amazing group of people in that feature. So I was really lucky. There were some nuanced issues that I brought up in regards to my section about it, which never really my intent to call someone out unless I'm gonna provide some sort of teaching moment or whatever.
Right.
And I didn't even know who wrote my section of the piece, and it was literally only a paragraph. So for some people, it definitely, and even for myself, I kind of battled with is this even, should I even say anything, whatever.
Right.
But for me, it's been an issue. Just in general, for people to mislabel me and how I wish to be, presented, especially in hockey, in a sport that's the one that I'm currently involved in, at least, is very able-bodied dominant, and the language is, we're evolving every day. So there's a lot of nuances to everything, and I tweeted about it, and then I got a bunch of people from the Hockey News following me, and I didn't know who wrote it. So with the help of one of my friends, I was able to whittle it down to a person, and then Matt Larkin was really, really nice and kind about doing it justice in the sense of saying how I want to say stuff. So he asked if we could do a solo piece, and I was really just happy he took the whole thing really well. And I was really thankful to him during the whole process. So it was a bit of a journey to get there, but towards the end of it, between him and I said, like, and I think to my general audience too, I just said I think some things like this are meant to happen so that we can learn and then grow and be better afterwards. So it was an interesting experience, and I'm lucky I got him before Matt starts his new job soon.
Yeah, I just saw that today that he's jumping on that daily face-off site, which is really growing. It's pretty crazy over there. Well, that's a great. I'm glad that had a happy resolution. The interview was really. Was that in the print edition as well, or just?
I have no idea. It lives online currently, so we'll see.
I should next time I'm at the pharmacy, I'm gonna check that out, see if it's in there. That would be pretty cool. You mentioned that you were part of the expansion draft. You got to go check out the arena. The Bruins got their first impression of it last night or yesterday when they practiced. It looks pretty amazing, the photos. Can you kind of describe what makes Climate Pledge Arena so unique?
It has this ability to feel really like intimate, given how big it also feels. You kind of have to like experience it for yourself to really get what that feels like, and I feel like the Bruins themselves might be surprised at the fan base, I guess, in person, and sort of it is shocking because I'm sure they pay attention a little bit when they're facing a different opponent of what's going on in their world, and so I'm sure they'll be a bit surprised about how many people show up and are so excited to be there. And I've talked to a few people lately, like it's safe to assume that when a team is struggling the way that the Kraken are this year, that fans will get frustrated and not want to show up for these guys. But it really couldn't be different. They wanted this team so badly, and in the form that it is now is not the best. It's not what we want necessarily, but everybody's still just so excited to have a new team to cheer for. And the guys really do try to put their all into every game, even if it doesn't turn out the way that they want it to. But it's still their job at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking to Allison about that yesterday, and it kind of this is kind of how it usually works for expansion teams. Vegas kind of is the outlier that way. I grew up in Ottawa, and I was around when the Senators came into the NHL, and they were abysmal. Like, it was one of the worst teams I've ever seen. So even Seattle not meeting expectations or as good as people thought they could be, but still great to see them in the league. And who is the player that you got to announce again in the expansion draft?
Morgan Geeky.
Oh, very cool. And did you have anything to keep from that or
Yeah, so I got a bunch of little prep cards, basically. I had no idea really what time I was going to be presenting, so that was a little bit tricky. And then when I finally got my time card, like I think I was number 8 or something, and I got to look at the list, and I was like, oh, like it just felt like it came up and happened so quickly, which was good in a lot of ways because it was stressful for me. But yeah, I got to have the actual announcement card, and then I waited till like literally the last second to ask our coordinator if I could get it signed, because it's kind of this thing, like my mom was like hounding me to get it signed even when we were there in the summer, and I was like, well, he wasn't there in the summer, but she was like, we need to do something with it. And then I brought it with me in October, and I was able to do it, but I was really nervous to ask because it just feels like a weird thing to do as someone that's like technically an employee of some kind. So,
Right,
but
yeah.
they like were kind of mad because they were like, why would you be scared to ask? I'm like, I don't know. I follow the rules. I don't know what the rules are. Like,
That's funny. Now, before we move on, I just need to interject here with a quick word about BetOnline. Football's over, but basketball, hockey in full steam for both pro and college. You can get the latest odds, totals, player performance props, even bet on when the next coach is going to be fired at betonline.net. It's your number one spot for all sports betting needs. And people can head to the website today, use their mobile devices to learn more about the trends and action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, Chanel, you mentioned you kind of roll with the Seattle Kraken. Can you kind of talk about some of the more specific things that you've been able to do with Seattle so far?
Yeah, it's sort of becoming a more common theme in arenas. But during the summer, I was basically asked by some of our team at the arena just to, like, whatever ideas that you have, even if they seem big or small, whatever, like, let us know. And even then, I'm like, I still don't know, like, what I should, vouch for or whatever. But one of the things that I brought up is, as a wheelchair user and just someone that doesn't often really like to leave my seat during a game, even if it's during intermission, because that's usually when everybody, go get a snack or whatever. I was like, especially here at home, I don't want to pay, $20 for chicken or chicken nuggets or whatever, and then either lose them on my way back or have to wait in lines and all these things. So I asked him, like, if there was a way that we could come up with some sort of concierge service or like pick up to go type thing, or someone would deliver it to you at your seat. So it's currently in more of our like premium based accessible seating in the premium area of the arena, but hopefully over time it'll become more accessible to everybody who may want that type of thing. And for me, I was super excited to learn about it and to see it happen and be successful in real life. So when I was there, I tried it for myself just to see, if it worked or not, and it did, and I was really excited to see that. So it's one of the more visual and tangible things. So
yeah, that's super important for sure. Since we last talked as well, Willie O'Ree finally had his number retired by the Boston Bruins. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be in attendance because of the pandemic and all that, but he's someone that we've talked about before. What did that night mean to you as a fan of the game and someone who admires Willie O'Ree for sure?
Yeah, I was supposed to. There was a time where I was pretty sure I was going to go to that game, and then life kind of happened, and I wasn't able to go in person. And I was kind of glad because I was able to weep in my own home. It was really emotional, and I think even for him, I don't think it will be real necessarily till he comes here and sees it for himself. And I'm hopeful that even though it will probably be long since the number of retirement or whatever, that he'll be able to be honored if he comes here again. It's just been interesting to see the timeline of events, because I knew this was happening for quite some time, and then the date just kind of kept getting moved. And it was really moving to see him react to it, even via satellite, as I say. So it was really great, and I think the game presentation crew over there did a really great job, all things considered. Like,
for sure,
it's hard to pull something like that off with it being a hybrid situation. So that was really cool to witness, and I think it still meant a lot to him, even though he wasn't there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they did a great job, especially considering the circumstances, but still getting some gifts out to him, and he could watch, or the players could watch him open it and stuff like that. That was really cool to see. Unfortunately, they kind of stunk that night against Carolina in that game.
Yeah.
No, you've been keeping a close eye on Seattle. I'm sure you've been watching some Bruins games as well this year. What are your thoughts on the Boston Bruins so far this season?
I've actually been paying close attention to both of them.
Yeah.
Sadly, anytime they do this thing where they play either at the same time or it's staggered, which is kind of not nice. I would say it's chaotic for me, honestly. So like our game will start. The Bruins game will start at 7, and then by the time it's over, the next one starts, and that's when those days happen, it's
Right.
nice, but it's also just like, what am I doing to
Very
myself?
long.
It's funny that I don't know if a lot of people, like, I talked to their CEO last month, and I was like, he asked me if I had been watching or seeing any of the games, and I'm like, yeah, I've watched, I think, every single one so far, sadly. So it's hard. The Bruins really throw me through a loop this season. I think they feel that way themselves as well. I was kind of thinking that the Tuca retirement would sort of shake them up a little bit in a good way, and sort of make them take a step back and realize like how precious time is. And I think we get so jaded in our routines and all these things that we're so privileged to have, and it's really easy to let that cloud everything that's going on. And then especially when some guys are trying to get out of the system.
Yeah.
It's been quite a time to see Jake DeBrusk really start to come out of whatever haze he's been in for the last couple of seasons, and then it just so happens that it comes after he announced that he doesn't want to play for us anymore. So it's kind of nuts. I feel like part of him might still feel like, oh, maybe now that things are picking up again, and I still love everybody here, but I think ultimately we will see him get moved at some point, which is sad because, he seemed like the type to be a career player here, or the Bruins or whatever. So I'm hopeful. I'm also just like, is the Kraken going to pick him up? Because I swear we get every guy from the
There's a
team.
bunch. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to make it through the whole game tonight. Those 10 p.m. starts are pretty late for me, pretty much past my bedtime, but try to watch as much of it as I can for sure. And speaking of watching things, I know you're a bit of a Euphoria fan. That's something that my wife and I have watched a lot lately. The season finale is coming up. Any bold predictions for that season finale? Anybody gonna get removed from the show, you think, or what's gonna happen? I'm very excited about that.
I tweeted this after I saw last week's episode. I feel like it's trending in a predictable, way for me, and it's been funny because I haven't really been not surprised by what they do. So like, they've been pretty good at being suspenseful and not getting. I mean, things don't really get leaked either. So I think that's because it's on HBO, so they get a little more. They get a little more things locked up over there. But I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I'm very much a Fez Coast fan. I'm really worried about my guy. I just, it feels like something bad's gonna happen, and I just also don't. I always was skeptical of the new character that came in. Anyways, it seems to be heavily involved in that situation. So like, I don't know. I think when I'm already sort of a mistrustful person of certain kinds, I'm like, oh man, I don't know what's gonna be happening. I'm nervous, but
I'm very fearful for Ethan after last week's musical number and with Nate's history of violence, I'm not too hopeful about his future, unfortunately. Anyway, Chanel, thank you so much for taking some time to chat again today. Where can people find you on Twitter, and where can people follow along?
Oh man, I don't know if I want to advertise my Twitter these days. It's a little bit, it's all over the place. But yeah, you can find me everywhere at Chanelly37 after our king, Patrice Bergeron. So
yes,
pretty easy to find.
Praise be. Thanks so much, Chanel, and enjoy the game tonight. And I'm sure we will we'll chat again sometime soon down the road.
Yep. Thank you so much.
No problem. Have a great rest of the day. Always great to catch up with Chanel. Thank you so much again for taking some time. And let's now pivot to tonight's game against the Seattle Kraken. And as expected, it looks as though Jake DeBrusk is going to skate on the top line with Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron. He was skating yesterday with Jesper Froden and Bergeron. That's because Brad Marchand did not practice. He was tending to a quote-unquote happy personal family matter, and he was going to join the Bruins in Seattle yesterday. He will be on the ice for the morning skate ahead of his return to the lineup following that 6-game suspension. He still leads the Bruins in points with 49, despite missing those games. And Bruce Cassidy not worried about his conditioning. He expects him to pick things back up right away. In the second line, Eric Howla will be reunited with Taylor Hall, David Pastrnak. The 11, 12, 13 line remains intact. Trent Frederick, Charlie Coyle, Craig Smith. And then it looks like Anton Bleed is the odd man out, along with Froden, who will be out of the lineup as well, with Nick Foligno jumping on the fourth line with Tom McNosick and Curtis Lazar. Froden and Jack Ashawn were called up to serve as reinforcements on this trip. Forbort and Connor Clifton will be paired together. Riley, McAvoy, Grzelcyk, Carlo, the other defensive pairings. And Linus Ullmark is going to get the start in this one, with Jeremy Swayman going Saturday in San Jose. They made that decision to send Studnicka down in order to get him some more playing time in the AHL. They didn't want him just sitting around doing nothing on this road trip, or not doing nothing, but not getting into games. Cassidy said he is competing harder, stronger on pucks. They want him to, just continue to find his identity. If he's going to be an offensive guy, then you have to expect him to make more plays. They have put him out for some D-zone draws. They like that part of his game. He's a guy that will work to keep the puck out of his net. But right now they have 4 guys who can play down the middle. They wanted to bring Froden up for this road trip in order to have some reinforcements on the wing if necessary. Now, if one of these centers were to get injured, maybe that situation will change in the midst of this long road trip. But for now, that's the lineup that they're going with. Urho Vakanainen remained in Boston. He was a late scratch Monday against Colorado. And they said there's not a lot of change there. Has to get back in the ice and skating before they can think about bringing him aboard. He did play 1 game or 2 following an upper body injury. So there's some concerns there with, is it a head thing? What's going on? He is back in Boston. Now, again, the big story, Jake DeBrusk playing on the right side with Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron. Bruce Cassidy said they had a good discussion with him about playing with those 2 guys. Is this something that would take him away from his game or help build his game? He said he would like to give it a go and see where it leads. Sometimes chemistry happens, sometimes it doesn't, but that's how they're going to try it for now. It's not even just about chemistry in this situation. It's him playing his off wing as well, which isn't ideal. And like Chanel and I Chanel mentioned, he does have that, trade request hanging over. Are they bumping him up to the first line to help him get going in order to boost his trade value? Is it a situation where they are putting some more faith in him in the hopes that they can get more out of him for the stretch run if he's going to stick around? If they ultimately decide that it's in their best interest to keep him for the balance of the season as a kind of internal rental option, if they're not going to qualify him or let him go. He can bring some speed, create turnovers on the forecheck. That's what they're expecting of him. And Cassidy is confident that DeBrusk will be able to take on all the defensive responsibilities that come with playing on that line as well, after he played some recent games in a checking role with Nosek and Lazar. They've used him against good lines. He was really good with that line. Cassidy said they're not worried about it defensively. Jake's habits have been more consistent in terms of stick position in the D zone, and just have to remind him about those and correct when they need to, just like everybody on the team. So, you don't often hear Cassidy kind of lauding Jake's effort, his defensive game, but they kind of don't have a choice at the moment unless they wanted to put Froden up on that line, scratch Foligno, which they don't really seem keen on doing quite yet, despite calls from the fan base to do so. Anyways, that is it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. Boston will have a morning skate sometime this afternoon, and we'll get more of a sense of the lineup, but that's pretty much what we can expect tonight. 10 p.m. Eastern start for the Bruins, and tomorrow's episode we will recap what happens tonight, take a look ahead at the weekend, and just get you caught up on all things black and gold here on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Happy Thursday, friends.